Here, okay. First of all, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances to each and every one of you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Hare Krishna. My name is Rasa Sindhu Das. I am visiting New York City from Redlands, California, and I've come here to the beautiful Bhakti Center for the Rathyatra festival. Lots of initiations, lots of wonderful sadhus in town. So it's my greatest honor and pleasure that I'm here in front of the devotees in presence in person here and all of the wonderful devotees online that I'm seeing. And I pray to the Lordships, Radha Murlidhar. I pray to Srila Prabhupada. I pray to all the Vaishnavas in the assembly, on Zoom assembly, that may the right words come out of my mouth in the right spirit, and that the acharyas, the sampradaya, they speak through me, so that all of you can associate with the sound incarnation of the Lord, and then connect your consciousness with the Supreme onto His lotus feet. I'll start with Jai Radha Madhava. I can play it. So I'll start with the Jai Radha Madhava bhajan, and then we'll go into Mangalacharan. And then after Mangalacharan, we'll look at the verses. And then after verses, we'll do a discussion. Since today also happens to be the day of Rathyatra, so I'll connect the verses that I've been assigned with the Rathyatra. And the idea being, the main theme of today's conversation is causality. And what does causality mean, and how it connects with the verse in hand, and how it connects with the Jagannath Rathyatra, all in all. And then we'll conclude with question and answers. Okay. All right. Slippery kartals. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braj Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braj Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for Mridanga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay, so we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 4, verse number 24 and 25. So verse number 24. So no call and response. I'll just read the verse and the translation. And then this verse is no purport. And then I'll read the next verse and the translation. And then we'll go into our discussion. Okay, so the verse 10, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:4-24. Mochayama Shanigadad Vishrabdha Kanayaka Gira Devakim Vasudevam Cha Darshayan Atma Sauridam. Mochayam Asha. Kamsa released them, Nigadat, from their iron shackles. Vishrabdha, with full confidence. Kanyaka Gira, in the words of the goddess Durga. Devakim, towards his sister Devaki. Vasudevam Cha, and his brother-in-law Vasudev, Darshayan, fully exhibiting Atma Sauridam, his family relationship. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Fully believing in the words of the goddess Durga, Kamsa exhibited his familial affection for Devaki and Vasudev by immediately releasing them from their iron shackles. I'll read the next verse, and then I'll give some context regarding these verses. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:4-25. Bhratu samanu taptasya shanta rosha cha devaki vyashrajad vasudevascha prahasyatam uvachaha. Synonyms. Bhratu, towards her brother Kamsa. Samanu taptasya, because of his being regretful. Kshanta rosha, was relieved of anger. Cha, also. Devaki, Krishna's mother. Devaki. Vyasrajat, gave up. Vasudevacha, Vasudev also. Prahasya, smiling. Tam, unto Kamsa. Uvacha, said, ha, in the past. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When Devaki saw her brother actually repentant while explaining ordained events, she was relieved of all anger. Similarly, Vasudeva was also free from anger. Smiling, he spoke to Kamsa as follows. Purport. Devaki and Vasudeva, both highly elevated personalities, accepted the truth presented by Kamsa that everything is ordained by providence. According to the prophecy, Kamsa would be killed by the 8th child of Devaki. Therefore, Vasudeva and Devaki saw that behind all these incidents was a great plan devised by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because the Lord had already taken birth, just like a human child, and was in the safe custody of Yashoda, Everything was happening according to plan, and there was no need to continue their ill feelings towards Kamsa. Thus, they accepted Kamsa's words. Okay. So I'll quickly do a very simple Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Maham Bande Shri Guruti Nataranam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay. So context, right? What's happening? We are in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? 4th chapter. The 4th chapter is called as the atrocities of King Kamsa. So the 10th canto, as we all know, and here I'll open up Zoom here. We all know it starts with prayers of the demigods, right? That Lord Brahma goes up to the Lord. Mother Bhumi goes up to Lord Brahma. There is a lot of atrocities. There's a lot of negative influence on the planet. And then she's asking for to be relieved. And then as a result, what happens? Lord Brahma accepts their pleas and then goes up to the Lord. And then the Lord gives them assurance that he'll take birth, he'll take his advent, right? And then that will continue. Just a second. Yeah. And then after that, in the second chapter, we saw how Kamsa, how Devki and Vasudev get married, and then Kamsa is driving their chariot, taking them. At the same time, there's this huge voice in the sky, and in the translation, it's written that it was an unembodied voice. So there was this huge voice coming from the sky that Kamsa, you fool, you're carrying them, but their 8th child will kill you. And then we see Kamsa's true nature come out. That Kamsa immediately, he was showing his affection, he was doing his brotherly duties, and suddenly he is about to kill them, right? And then Vasudev and Kamsa have a discussion. Vasudev pleads that Kamsa, you're a sane man. You'll understand that it's not Devaki who is the cause of your death; it's the child. So I'm going to give you all the children that are being born, and then that way you can take care. And then Kamsa accepts that plea, and then we see his demoniac nature also at the root of it, that he accepts. And then Kamsa imprisons them, and then they deliver each child, and then they give it to Kamsa. And so all of this continues. And then we also know that there's a backstory, right? These children, the 6 children, were the sons of Kalanemi in the previous life, born in the lineage of Hiranyakashipu, very very powerful lineage. We talk about the Rockefeller lineage in the New York City. So it was the Hiranyakashipu lineage. And then again, in the life before that, they were all the sons of Marichi. And then they laughed at Lord Brahma and they were cursed. So we see the backstory of what's happening here. But anyway, so the 6 children get executed by Kamsa. And then the 7th one is born. And then the 7th one, we know that because of the power of Yogamaya, what happens, that the transfer, the exchange, the transcendental exchange happens, that Lord Ananta, who appeared in the womb of Devaki, is transferred to the womb of Mother Rohini, and Yogamaya, or Durga, Maya Devi, is born there, and then she's moved into the womb of Devaki, and then she appears, and then Kamsa gets confused when the 7th child is delivered, that, oh, it's a girl. And then Devaki pleads that don't kill this girl. She is, Kamsa, you should not hurt an old man, a woman, a child. These are not even prescribed in the Shastra that you need to kill them. However, Kamsa, being the demon-minded, evil-minded king that he was, he tries to kill that baby girl. And suddenly, and the verses describe that when he tries to kill the baby girl, instead of slipping down, she slips up, right? So we see in normally, when you get rid of someone, they fall down, gravity comes into play. But because this is Maya herself, she controls all the laws of nature, right? So it goes up. So she went up, and then she took the form of Durga or Bhadrakali, and with her 8 limbs, she tells Kamsa that, you fool, the one that's supposed to kill you, that one will already take his birth, and you're fool, you're doomed. And Kamsa is shocked. And at that point, that's where these verses come into picture, that Kamsa is shocked, and then Kamsa offers his prayers. And that's the translation, that fully believing in the words of goddess Durga, Kamsa exhibited his familial affection for Devaki and Vasudeva by immediately releasing them from their iron shackles. So they were in the shackles. So before this verse, they are in their shackles. Goddess Durga has appeared, and Kamsa is surprised and shocked. And in the context of that, this verse comes, that he believed in the words of Goddess Durga. What did Goddess Durga say? So before me, previous speakers, a few days ago, they spoke about this verse, that Goddess Durga tells him that you fool Kamsa, you can't kill me, you can't do anything. You'll be killed by the will of providence, and it's going to happen. And so Kamsa then, so this verse comes into picture, that he fully believes the words of Goddess Durga, and he exhibits his familial affection, and then he released them from iron shackles. And then the next verse is, when Devaki saw her brother actually repentant while explaining the ordained events, she was relieved of all anger. Similarly, Vasudeva was also free from anger. Smiling, he spoke to Kamsa as follows. So I've tried to analyze these two verses in a few variations. So I'm going to just bring out those variations that I've seen here, and then we can speak about those. Just give me a second. I'm opening my notes here. Okay. So a few words that stood out to me as I was doing my research for this. Right, the first verse is Vishrabdaha. So Vishrabdaha, the word that Srila Shukdeva Goswami used to describe this, it means with full confidence. Right? So Kamsa had full confidence. In whom? Kanyaka Gira. Kanyaka, because Lord Goddess Durga was born as a Kanya, as a girl. So in that baby girl who became Durga, he had full confidence. Now the question comes up, that why would somebody like Kamsa have full confidence in anyone but himself? And why Goddess Durga of all? And I want to see if anyone can surmise or guess or answer that. Why did Kamsa have full confidence in Goddess Durga? Why would he act that way? Anyone? Let me see the chat here.
That was his worship of Devi.
That's exactly right. Kamsa is a demon, right? And then a lot of these people with demoniac tendencies, they worship a form of Durga, Bhadrakali or Mahakali, right? So their entire idea is because she controls material nature, Maya. So she can bestow wealth, she can bestow power. We see in the case of Jada Bharata, story of Maharaj Bharat, when he was about to be executed by these demons who came, and they were worshipping Kali, and Kali instead jumped from the altar and killed the demons instead, and said that you don't recognize who is standing in front of you. So Kamsa, when it is described by our acharyas that when the child took the form of Durga, Kamsa was astonished. And the very first thing that Kamsa thought was, how is this possible that Devaki, a seemingly ordinary living entity, can give birth to Maya Devi herself? And so he was astonished. So that was his astonishment, that, oh, then came the realization that it is actually my worshipable deity. It's Goddess Durga. And what did he do when he saw his deity, when he saw somebody he respects? He put full faith in their words, right? So it brings me to the point of the idea that that having an authority figure, right? Having an authority figure, that when you place full confidence in an authority figure, it only happens when there's a respect, when there's an understanding. And similarly, a reflection that I was taking in my life, reading from this, and a lesson from Kamsa himself, that where are we placing our authority? Who do we consider as authority, right? It's a very valid question when we come to Krishna consciousness, the practice of Krishna consciousness. That why should we read the Bhagavad Gita? Why should we listen to Srila Prabhupada? Back in the day when Srila Prabhupada came here to New York City, there were variations of Bhagavad Gita circulating in the world. But none of them made a devotee. When Srila Prabhupada came, when his Bhagavad Gita, his translation came, hundreds of people started reading those and becoming devotees. So we see the importance of placing your faith in the right authority figure. And so Kamsa is exhibiting that where he's placing his authority. First, it's good. We can typically devotees don't glorify Kamsa, but he deserves something, some credibility that he listened to an authority beyond himself, albeit the Maya, right? So the idea is, who is the authority, right? And then who do we follow? In the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 9, verse 25, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, Pitran Yanti Pitravrata, Bhutani Yanti Bhutejya, Yanti Mad Yajino Pima. So the Lord says, what does he say? Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me will come to me. So Krishna says that, where are you placing your authority? Who do you consider your authority? Many people, there are many kinds of flavors of gurus out in the world. And so wherever we place our authority, that this is the person I listen to, wherever they are going at the end of their life, we are also going there, right? Wherever they go. So if you worship demigods, you'll take birth among the demigods. If you worship ancestors, you go to Pitraloka, and then you can see ancestors and then connect with them. If you worship ghosts and spirits, you go there. And those who worship Krishna go to Krishna. So as devotees, Krishna clearly specifies to us in the Bhagavad Gita that where should we place our authority? That is in Krishna. And then the authority, of course, comes through 4 traditions. We know there are 4 Vaishnava traditions that were established, right? There's the Brahma Sampradaya, that's the same tradition we are following. Brahma, Madhava, Gaudiya Sampradaya, right? That's the tradition, unbroken lineage that is coming and through which we are getting these teachings. So that's where we place our authority. So Arjuna also placed his authority in Krishna, right? In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 7, right? Arjuna says, Shishyashyateham shadi mam tvam prapandam. That Krishna, I am thoroughly confused now. I don't know what my duty is, what my role is. And so now I take you as my spiritual master and I become your disciple. They had a friendly relationship. There was a friendly exchange. But then Arjuna said that, I take your shelter. Please guide me. So Arjuna reposed his authority in Krishna, and then the entire Bhagavad Gita came out. So that was an aspect of Kamsa's relationship that I saw here. And then what happens once he fully believes the words of Goddess Durga? He exhibits his familial affection, right? It is said that Atma Sohridam. So Kamsa exhibited his familial affection that the Devaki is related to me. And so when the words of authority hit his ears, he immediately released them from their shackles. And he exhibits some kind of compassion. There's this broader theme of compassion of Kamsa that comes and goes. In the beginning also, Kamsa says that, oh, you don't have to bring the first child to me. When the first child was born, does anybody know the first child of Devaki and Vasudeva? What was his name? Kirtiman. So his name was Kirtiman. When he was born, Vasudeva brings it to Kamsa, and Kamsa said, oh, no, I'm not worried about the first child. I'm worried about the 8th one, right? So sometimes devotees may think that, oh, Kamsa was compassionate, right? Kamsa can be compassionate. However, at a deeper look, we realize that his compassion was not coming out of the Jiva Daya, the idea of having mercy for the Jiva, but his compassion was arising from, or his seeming compassion was arising from the idea of that it doesn't affect my body. What can he do? What can this little baby do? It's the 8th one. So that's where it's coming from. But anyway, in this case, he did have some familial affection for Devaki. And so he released them from their iron shackles. And then what happens after he released them? When Devaki saw her brother actually repentant while explaining ordained events, she was relieved of all anger. Similarly, Vasudeva was also free from anger. So Devaki and Vasudeva, now we have to realize the qualities of a devotee is given here, that when they saw that a little spark of repentance in Kamsa, they were relieved of all anger. Now here's a man who has killed their 6 children, who has imprisoned them, kept them in a jail. And then when they saw a tiny bit of repentance in Kamsa, they were relieved of all anger. So it glorifies qualities of a devotee. And then Srila Prabhupada, that's the purport by Srila Prabhupada here. What does he say? That they were both highly elevated personalities. So a highly elevated personality, what do? They look for a tiny spark in someone. And if they see that spark, they magnify it, they glorify it. My spiritual master often says his entire movement, his social media channels, everything is called Fan the Spark. The entire idea is Fan the Spark. So they see that little spark and then they fan it so that it becomes massive. And so Kamsa, little spark of compassion, little spark of repentance, remorse that they saw, they fanned it and they accepted it. And then Srila Prabhupada said that they were highly elevated personalities. Then they accepted the truth presented by Kamsa, that everything is ordained by providence, because Kamsa makes the statement while goddess Durga comes and disappears. Kamsa makes the statement that the reason these children were killed is not directly because of me. It was ordained by providence. They had some bad karma they had, and we already saw that how they were sons of Marichi, who laughed at Brahma, that you're marrying Saraswati, that's your daughter. And they laughed at Brahma, they didn't realize. And then as a result, they were cursed to become the sons of Kalanemi, and then they were killed there. And then they took birth again as sons of Vasudeva and Devaki, and they were killed again. And their names, I found out their names last night, actually. All 6 of them had names: Smara, Udgit, Parishwanga, Patanga, Shuddhabrit, and Grini. These are the names, their actual names. So anyway, the point being, they accepted that Kamsa, the killing happened. The killing of these, there was an immediate cause and there was a distant cause, right? And so causality, and that's where now I come to the theme of our topic, that there's causality, that there is immediate cause, something immediately. Immediate cause was Kamsa killing them, and he has to get the reactions. And then there's a distant cause of why it actually happened in the first place, right? Because they had some dealings, and their past activities came out, and Kamsa's past activities came out, and it's kind of a merging of karmic reactions in such a way that this happened. And we see it all the time in our scriptures, that how nothing can be seen in isolation in itself, right? Another word that, so they were highly elevated personalities. They accepted the truth. Another thing that it reminded me of this idea that they accepted the truth from Kamsa is the idea of a Paramhamsa. A Paramhamsa, Srila Prabhupada describes, is like a swan, right? Paramhamsa literally means, Hamsa means swan, and Param means the most elevated swan. What does a swan do? If you have a mixture of milk and water, the swan would just take the milk out of it and leave the water. So similarly, they were Paramhamsas, that they only took the truth out of Kamsa and didn't realize that all the negative aspects of it. And so, and then they accepted will of providence. Then Prabhupada writes in the purport that they also accepted the great plan of the Lord. They knew that the Lord has a plan, that the Lord is going in some direction, and they accepted it because they knew that it will be Krishna who will appear, and then the killing of Kamsa would happen. And then what happened? That's why they didn't decide to continue with that ill feeling and ill will. Sometimes somebody does something wrong to us, we are wronged in some way, and we may tend to harbor that ill feeling for a while. But Devaki and Vasudeva, through this verse and this purport, are giving us as an example that when situations go bad, and then when we see that somebody is the cause of our pain, but then if because of their belief in providence, because of their belief in Krishna's words, because of their own qualities and their own sadhana and their devotional qualities, they were even able to forgive Kamsa at that point. And they smiled, and then smiling, and then they spoke to Kamsa. And that was this verse. Now, quickly pivoting it to the idea of, since today is a very auspicious day, we are having a Rathyatra festival. And this idea of immediate cause, right? That something that happens immediately and something that happens, the root cause, why is something taking place? And I saw that Achyuta Gopi spoke yesterday about Rathyatra and how Rathyatra came about with Krishna, right? With Krishna being taken away from Vrindavan, living in Dwarka, his promise to gopis and Radharani, Ayashya, 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 I'll come back. And Srimati Radharani writing that this is the only thing that has kept me alive, that Krishna promised to come back. And then for years have passed and Krishna has not returned. Krishna is this big king in Dwarka, and he has his assembly, and then he's not wearing his peacock feather, he's wearing the clothes of a king. And in Samanta Panchak near Kurukshetra, there is this massive eclipse taking place, and Krishna is invited by the Pandavas that you should please come. This massive eclipse is taking place, and then after ages, hundreds of years have passed, and then Krishna goes there with his entourage. All the Vrajavasis go there, and then this famous meeting in Kurukshetra takes place, which has a very special significance to our movement, because that same meeting is very closely connected to the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of his mood of separation and the appearance of Jagannath in the first place. So that is the actual cause. So Krishna goes there, and then he sees the gopis after years, and they are all standing in front of him, And Krishna cannot react. He's remembering all his past activities and all his cowherd pastimes and how he has transformed into this king now, and what life used to be. And in his heart, we know Acharya as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes what happens in Krishna's heart and all the emotions that are happening in his heart. And then we saw this meeting of Mother Yashoda and Subhadra and Radharani, and then all his queens, and they're discussing pastimes of Krishna. And then Krishna, Baldev, Subhadra, they're listening to it, and as a result, transcendental ecstasies, and then their limbs coincide and their eyes get bigger, and comes the form of Jagannath, right? So that's the root cause of the appearance. It is called as the form of the Mahabhav form of Krishna, appearing in that form that he cannot even blink his eyes, and that form of Jagannath appears. And then we saw Mahaprabhu also exhibiting that particular form in Chaitanya Leela at times, where he would hear the pastimes and his limbs would coincide, his eyes would become bigger. So that is the root cause. And then there is the immediate cause of Jagannath Rathyatra. And I'll quickly conclude here because we are almost at the end of our time. So that is the root cause of why Jagannath appears. And then when Krishna, he appears in that form, when he is completely mesmerized by the love of the gopis and the devotees, they sat him into the chariot and they dragged the chariot. And from Kurukshetra to Vrindavan, they took the chariot for Krishna to revisit Vrindavan. And that's the origin of Rathyatra, what we are doing, that the lordships come out. So that's the root cause. And then the immediate causes, hundreds of years ago in Satya Yuga, there was a king named King Indradyumna, who lived in Avantikapuri. Avantikapuri is present-day Ujjain. We have a beautiful temple built by His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj in Ujjain. That's where Krishna went to school. The Sanipani Muni ashram is there. And so Avantikapuri was led by King Indradyumna, and he was always morose. He wanted to worship the Lord, and he didn't know how to worship or what to do, and confused. So there was this mystic pilgrim that appeared in his assembly, and he says that I know a form of the Lord. His name is Nila Madhava. In his deity form, he is accepting loving devotional service. And you should see him. And Indradyumna was excited and exuberated that, oh yes, there's this form of Lord. Where is he? Where is he? So the pilgrim said that he's somewhere, you should find him. So he sends out his messengers in all directions. And one of his messengers was Vidyapati. And Vidyapati travels to the east side of India. Avantikapuri is central India. He goes to the east and he reaches the mountains of Niladri. And in Niladri mountains, he hears the news that there is a form of this Lord, Nila Madhava, being worshipped there. And then he goes up to that form of the Lord, but he cannot access it because it's being worshipped by a specific tribe, the Shabara tribe. And he wonders that how do I understand what they are doing, because they don't reveal anything. It was a tribe, so they had their language, they had their own paraphernalia, their way of worship. So he ends up marrying the daughter of the king of the tribe, and then as he marries the daughter, he begs her that take me to Nila Madhava, take me. And the daughter eventually convinces the father that, father, you should take him, you do the worship. And the father was a smart man, so he blindfolded Vidyapati. So I'll take you up to the mountains, but you'll be blindfolded. But Vidyapati was even smarter. He carried some seeds of mustard in his hands. And as he was being blindfolded, taken up, he was dropping the seeds of mustard. And then he goes up, he sees the form of Nila Madhava, and his eyes, he's mesmerized by that form of the Lord, that I've never seen this particular form of the Lord. And then he reveals to the Shabara king that his name was Vishwavasu, the Shabara king, that actually, your worship I'm seeing, you're just offering some fruit, some flowers. Why don't we take Nila Madhava to King Indradyumna, and then he'll do an opulent worship? And Vishwavasu was devastated that this is not how it is. Nila Madhava cannot just be taken. This is my deity. And then they come back, and Nila Madhava gives a dream to Vishwavasu that I actually want to be worshipped by Indradyumna now. And he's devastated, and the deity disappears the next day. He blames Vidyapati that it was your fault that the deity is gone, and then he vanishes. Vidyapati comes back to Avantikapuri. He tells King Indradyumna, oh, I found Nila Madhava, come. And then we have the mustard seeds. They are now blooming into plants, and then we'll follow. They come back, they go, and then the deity has disappeared. And Vidyapati is heartbroken, Indradyumna is heartbroken. And then there was this divine voice again that said that I will appear in a different form, and then you can worship me in that form. And then at that point, they're not sure what to do. And then at that same time, there was Narada Muni that appeared in the assembly, and Narada Muni said that, why don't you go to Brahma and ask him that what form would this be, what would happen? And Brahma gives them guidance that 3 logs of wood would be floating in the ocean. And it is said that these, in Padma Purana, it is described that these logs are actually from a Kalpa Vriksha in Shvetadvip. So there's an actual tree in Shvetadvip from which these logs of wood came floating. And so while Intradumna is with Brahma, ages have passed and Vidyapati is gone, and then Vishwavasu is gone. And because one moment for Brahma is thousands of years here, and then he comes back, and then these logs of wood come out, and then an older gentleman, and then they're unable to pick up the logs of wood because they are so heavy, and king's entire assembly is used. But then when the Shabara tribe comes, when people from there, the descendants of Vishwavasu came, they were able to pick up the logs, and then they said that who would carve them out? And so then older gentleman appears, which now we know is Vishwakarma. He appears and he crafts the deities, and then the form of the Lord, we've heard about it, that how he was working inside, and they were not sure if he's actually doing something or not. So they opened, and he said that don't disturb me while I'm crafting the deities. But because they opened before he was done, the deities were, half done per se, that they only had, Jagannath only had some arms, and Subhadra didn't even have arms. There's no lower part of the body, just big eyes. And that form of the Lord appeared, and then Intradumna was devastated, but then Narada said that this is the form of the Lord. He has appeared in this form because of what happened in the past, what happens, what events the Lord goes through. And then the immediate cause, this is the immediate cause, that the Lord appears in this particular form. Then of course the worship happens. Brahma himself does the installation. There's an entire story of how they put the Daru Brahman. The deity of Jagannath is hollow inside, and there's a specific element called the Daru Brahman which is placed inside. And every 15 to 19 years, they call it Navakalevar festival, that it is taken out and the new bodies are taken up by Lord Jagannath. And it's a whole deal in and of itself, how they find the new trees. So anyway, this is the immediate cause. And then the queen's name was Mother Gundicha, and Gundicha loved the deity so much that she had another palace in Jagannath Puri. And so the Rathyatra that actually happens in Jagannath Puri is you take Lord Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra outside, and then you take them to the Gundicha temple, and they go on the Grand Trunk Road in Jagannath Puri, and where the Rathyatra happens. So there is this, we discussed about the idea of root cause of why Jagannath forms appears. And again, I apologize for being brief, could go into details as needed. And then the immediate cause of Jagannath appearing that way, which is to honor the wishes of Gundicha and to honor and to see his devotees. He comes outside of the temple because Jagannath temple is in such a way that not everybody has access inside the temple because of historical reasons. So Jagannath, being his merciful Patita Pavana form of the Lord, that he comes out of the temple and then he goes, and then devotees carry, and it's symbolic of Krishna being taken to Vrindavan, symbolic of Krishna, Jagannath coming outside the temple, and Krishna entering our hearts, and Krishna transforming us. And that's the Rathyatra festival that we are celebrating here in New York City today. A lot of sadhus, an amazing assembly has appeared in this city, in this holy dham of Srila Prabhupada. And those of you who are online, please, if you can come in person, please visit the Rathyatra. If not, please watch it online. And then worship Lord Jagannath. And it's a form of Lord Jagannath Swami, Nayanapatagami Bhavatumi, that my dear Lord Jagannath, please appear in the field of vision of my eyes. And it's because our field of vision is so narrow, but Jagannath comes out of his temple so that he can appear in front of our vision, and then he can always remain in that vision. And Jagannath's vision is huge. He doesn't blink because he doesn't want to miss anyone. So he appears, and so please take his blessings and please participate enthusiastically in the Rathyatra. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions, thoughts, discussions? Then we can look at some ideas, some questions, or anything anyone wants to add. We have amazing devotees sitting here today. Or anyone online, if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, then please. Sorry? Yeah, please. Yeah, it's not loud.
It's an amazing story about the appearance of Lord Jagannath. And there's a play the devotees did called Jagannath Priyanatikam. You can get it. And it's so incredible how they did this. You'll cry, you'll laugh. The actors are telling about how King Indradyumna wanted a deity, and how Lord, all these different pastimes. And you told the whole story in 5 minutes. It's a little long, little longer, and it's hard to get, but it's a wonderful story, and it's very exciting and interesting. Look that up. They did it on Lord Chaitanya's 500 appearance day in Mayapur, Jagannath Natakam. It's available audio. And you're talking about this Kamsa pastime and forgiveness. The idea of forgiveness. The Dandakana Maharaj was speaking recently about the Lord knows everything. He's the cause of all causes, but also he's sentient, which means he has a heart, that he knows about you, he cares about you, he loves you, and forgiveness is there because we make mistakes. And it's so important for devotees to be forgiving each other, forgiving crazy people who offend us. And then we can go forward in spiritual life. We'll go to Sri Prabhupada Krishna.
We'll conclude with the Aarti ceremony here. Thank you, dear devotees, for joining. Please
Thank you. Great class. Okay. Thank you, dear devotees. Thank you, Krishna Das, Rameshwar Nayak, Andrea, Sundarananda Das, William, Kartik, Susan, Yogeshwari, Hemangi, Preeti Chaturvedi, Suzanne. Yeah, let's forgive each other, dear devotees. Please forgive me. Venetia, Pet, and I forgive you. Pet, Dunphy, Anna, Radhika, Angelica, Arjuna, Prabhu, bowing down to you. Jason, I saw Jason yesterday. Jason, Hare Krishna. Karuna Gauranga, I saw him. Beautiful. He's a very handsome devotee. Bhima Das, Hare Krishna. Okay, have a wonderful day. See you at the parade.